Hold up. 3 passing TDs and 30 interceptions? You cannot make that up. You can't. No, bro. I gotta watch this. Bro, what?
This is Blankos, the free-to-play multiplayer
The
game where
fuck?
you can unlock, earn, and sell NFTs in-game.
Really? A game with that's the
Blankos,
NFTs?
it pays to play, literally. You can choose to sell
So,
your Blankos on the...
yeah.
The year
no.
is 1976.
Let's watch this.
With the NFL's rise in popularity,
True.
they added 2 new teams.
Mm-hmm.
The Seattle Seahawks
And Tampa
and
Buccaneers.
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes.
Geographically, with being on the West Coast, the Seahawks joined the NFC West.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And on the East Coast,
They
the
joined the-
Buccaneers joined the AFC West.
Oh,
What?
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't,
It didn't
but-
actually matter since both teams played different schedules than other teams, but still
True.
weird nonetheless. Anyways, in March 1976, both teams participated in an expansion draft and selected 39 players from the other 26 franchises. With their new rosters intact, Seattle and Tampa Bay geared
Yo,
up.
and now to think about it, in 1976, who would have thought the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have more rings than a lot of teams who's been around since day one? They got more rings than the Browns. They got more rings than the Lions. They got more rings than the, let's see, who else? The Bills. They got more rings than the Bills. Like, I can name a couple teams they got more rings than teams that have been there since day one. So the fact that they came like from expansion team and they came such a long way, and both of them, well, Seattle got 1 and Tampa got 2. Both of them got, rings. It's kind of gotta give the
For
franchise
their
props.
inaugural season. To put it lightly, things were a struggle.
You think?
Both clubs lost their first 5 games,
Dang.
mostly by blowouts, before they met.
Hold on. All right, St. Louis Cardinals, basically the Arizona Cardinals. 30, damn, 30, 37, 20. Not bad. That's not bad. Compared to Tampa, that's not bad compared to Tampa. They held their own. The only time they got destroyed was against Washington. The only like 3 scores, 2 scores, a score. That's not bad. 20-0, 23-0, 14-9, 42-17. They got zipped. Nah.
In Week 6. This had officially become one of the saddest matchups the NFL had ever seen. Seattle managed to eke out a 13-10.
Okay, sorry to pause again. 39 flags for 310 penalty yards, revisiting the most penalized game in modern NFL history. 2 0-5 expansion teams, 39 flags thrown, 35 accepted penalties for 310 yards, 85-degree heat with 100% humidity. Players who suffered through the Seahawks and Buccaneers matchup in 1976 remember it as one of the ugliest NFL games ever. And Seattle ended up winning 13-10.
Victory in one of the most forgettable performances ever. From there,
Jesus.
the Seahawks would only manage to win 1 more game, mostly losing by large margins.
Yeesh.
But despite this, they were still much more impressive than the
Yeah.
lowly Bucks, who failed to win a single game. The Bucks lost by an average margin of over 20 points a contest. They had been the worst.
Yo, Tampa was really... No, I heard about Tampa being bad because, I watch this channel, of course. I heard about Tampa being bad, but this? What the fuck? Okay, we saw the first 5 games. They lost by 3, 9, 35, 34. They didn't even score. I understand it's an expansion team, but even the Texans held their own when they came to the league. And the league was tougher back then. In 04.
Worst team in the league
When I was
by
born.
far, especially offensively. They were shut out 5 times and averaged an abysmal 8.9 points per game.
That's bad.
The 1976 Bucks are well known as perhaps the
worst
worst team
team
to
ever.
ever exist. They surely produced one of the worst offenses of all time. Even Reddit agrees. But
Yeah.
to me, the saddest part about all of this was that the 77 Bucks had
The
an
next
even
year.
worse offense.
Wait, hold on. What?
Get out there, you idiot! Get it so we can get it. Get it so we can get it. Oh, horse. No gut. guts. That's what's wrong with us.
After the brutal 1976 season, head coach John McKay thought his team was going to improve all around, but he vastly underestimated how hard it was going to actually be. Now, before we continue to the 77 Bucks, this video is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a company that I've been working with for a long time, and they gather tickets from all across the web and put them into one area.
I know eventually I'm end up getting ads for like
from football, baseball. Back when Buccaneers were created, they hired the highly successful USC coach John McKay, who had won multiple national titles to that point.
But we all know how college coaches in the NFL works. It never works out. I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. It does not work out in the slightest. Urban Meyer is a prime example. I thought he was gonna do good too. Man's got fired in the first. He didn't even finish the season, and he got fired. The fuck?
He came in with arrogant confidence.
I don't think the game is that difficult.
It's no more difficult than college ball, huh?
Not in my opinion.
What?
Like many other college coaches have tried to do, McKay came into Tampa and ran camp like a drill sergeant. A lack of water breaks, non-stop hitting drills, two-a-days that lasted 10 weeks. They actually were still doing two-a-days when the season started. It was so intense that during a practice, one of the players went into the facility for a bathroom break and snuck out the front doors and never returned. It actually became a running joke every time someone went to the bathroom. Like, is that dude coming back? This type of training proved to do much more harm than good. And by the end of the 76 season, 21 guys had landed on injured reserve, with 18 of them getting knee surgeries. 18 knee surgeries? Are you joking? They were down so bad that they literally had a truck driver and an unemployed construction worker on the roster by the end of the year. This is all the result of the worst possible combination. A first-time GM trying to find talent, a first-time head coach who's never been at this level, and a brand new team with players who didn't know each other. After the Bucks finished 0-14 in 1976, the enthusiasm that had radiated throughout Tampa from fans to the players had vanished. The team had gone from exciting new beginnings to the laughingstock of pro sports in a year. They were essentially the last chance U of the NFL, a player's final stop before they were out of the league. John McKay's son, JK, who played wideout for that team, said in a documentary that when he had to go up against Steelers Hall of Fame corner Mel Blount, that's when he realized that he was in the wrong line of work and needed to find another job.
God. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. This is how you know NFL back then was ruthless. He slammed him on his neck.
He was in the wrong line of work.
He slammed him on his neck.
Another job. Now, when building up the 77 Bucks to hopefully be more competitive, they actually improved their defense a lot.
Yeah, Tampa was always Tampa. If you know Tampa Bay, you know Tampa Bay is mainly known for their defense. They wasn't really known for their offense until, well, the greatest NFL player of all time joined Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Tom Brady, the GOAT, of course, but yeah.
To just less than 16 a game, a massive improvement. But on the offensive side, they were as lost as ever, and literally nothing could go right. Entering the 77 season, head coach John McKay declared the team to be, quote, stronger at every position, with the exception of the quarterback. Man, imagine being in the QB room and seeing that quote. Beginning in the preseason, the unimproved quarterback room began to quickly get worse. The expected QB battle was supposed to be between Mike Boyla and Gary Huff, two backup-worthy dudes who hadn't played in a year, but both suffered knee injuries in the first two preseason games. This left an already down bad team to their third and fourth stringers. Parnell Dickinson, who had almost no experience, and the rookie, Randy Hedberg. Hedberg had just got done playing at the NAIA Division II school, Minot State. This has to be the weakest quarterback battle the league's ever seen, which was eventually won out by Hedberg. So How does a former NAIA Division II rookie quarterback listed as the fourth
Oh,
stringer
no.
who suddenly thrust into the starting role on the league's previously worst offense perform? Well, not good. In Game 1, Hedberg threw for 66 yards, as the team barely managed to produce over 100 total yards and 3 points. In Game number 2, Hedberg threw almost as many interceptions as he did completions, and with even less yards than the week before.
God. Like, really look into this, y'all. 0 TDs, 3 interceptions. 29%. That's worse than what he did in week 1.
He was benched following the contest.
He was benched?
Game number 3, the Bucks finally score their first touchdown of the season because of a fumble return touchdown.
Wow,
Even with
defense.
one of their better quarterbacks, Gary Huff, coming back to play, the offense was still abysmal, failing to score any
Yeah, it's
points.
Dallas.
Game number 4. Without the help of another defensive scorer, the Bucks were held scoreless, and Gary Huff threw 3 interceptions. Game number 5.
Oh,
Expansion Bowl 2. Going up against
Rematch.
the league's worst defense, the Bucks offense finally got their first touchdown of the season. It only took 5 games. They did lose
That's
that
not
day,
good.
but their offense played way better than the previous games. This 23-point outing looked like the breakthrough moment that this team needed to spark something. So how did it translate? Well, in the next 7 games, they went scoreless in 5 of them.
Yo!
Dude,
Come
in 12
on.
games, they had scored 4 offensive touchdowns.
Come
That is
on, bro.
insane. Could you
Y'all
imagine watching your team only score an offensive touchdown
Y'all can't be... Nah, there's no way they can be
once
that
every 3
trash,
games?
bro.
To this point, the 77 Bucks were 0-12, and adding that to the previous season, they were on a
0-20
record 26-game losing streak. The fans had gotten so relentlessly negative that they made shirts that said the sarcastic quote, "Go for 0." Let's just say head coach
That's
John McKay
wild.
was at his wit's end.
Might be a lot of sacks.
That's wild.
But we made up for it by not tackling. We will attempt to come back next Sunday in Tampa Stadium in front of our own crowd. We've now proven we can't play on the road or in front of our own crowd. So we would like to have a neutral site.
We went through 8 quarterbacks. Every time I looked up, start that guy. We had no audible system because we had the left guard was from Nova Scotia and the right guard was we just picked up from Philadelphia. They barely knew each other's name.
Things had gotten so bad that when the Bucks entered Week 13, going up against the New Orleans Saints, QB Archie Manning said that it would be an embarrassment to lose to Tampa Bay. Wow, an embarrassment? I mean, it's true, but
It's
I don't
the
care who you
NFL.
are. You see someone say that kind of thing about your team, and it has to light a fire under your ass. These quotes were posted in the Bucks locker room, and in Week 13, they came ready to play.
Against the Saints.
Stop throwing. Intercepted. That could be an easy 6 points. Touchdown.
Eesh.
The Buccaneers put up 33 points en route to their franchise's first ever win. They scored 4 total touchdowns, and guess how many of those were offensive?
0.
1. They
One?
had 2 pick sixes and a fumble recovered in the end zone. It literally took one of the greatest defensive performances ever for this
Yeah.
team to get over the hump. And the following week, their defense balled out again, forcing 4 turnovers, and they won for the 2nd time in a row. This 2-game win streak had brought the excitement back to Tampa, and surely masked what the NFL had just witnessed from the Bucs offense. So let's take a moment to look at some stats.
Oh, God.
If you want to be on camera, you want to be behind the camera, you want to do radio, podcast, whatever it is, this is a...
Oh.
In 14 games,
14 games.
the Bucs offense was shut out 6 times. That would have been 7 if it wasn't for a defensive touchdown. As far as total touchdowns go, they scored 7 offensively. That was barely more than what their defense had. Their 3 different starting quarterbacks produced some insane touchdown to interception ratios.
Oh,
Jeb
no.
Blunt, who was brought in right before the regular season, eventually started 4 games.
Excuse me.
And he had 0 touchdowns, to 7 interceptions.
Yo.
The Rook from Minot State, Randy Hedberg, had 0 touchdowns to 10 interceptions.
Yo, bro.
And with 6 starts and by far the best quarterback, Gary Huff had 3 touchdowns to 13 interceptions.
How is this an improvement? Yo, each of them has went up by 3 for interceptions. I shit you not. +3, 0, 0, and then +3. That's bad. That is.
This gave them a whopping total of 3 passing touchdowns to 30 interceptions. I think John McKay was too nice when talking about how much his team had changed from 76 to 77. For the Super Bowl era, this is the worst combined quarterback stat line
of all
that
time
I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Now, to be more
I never
fair,
even know that shit existed,
even though those
bro.
quarterbacks weren't good, it was made far worse by a terrible O-line, lackluster skill position talent, an inexperienced coaching staff, and overall the era that they played in. As a whole, the saddest NFL offense in league history, taking away the defensive touchdowns, managed a measly 5.6
That's
points per
pathetic.
game. Now, for context, here is the 77 Bucs numbers compared to every season's worst offenses since the NFL merger to 1977. Among those years, there were 3 other teams that...
Let me see. Bro, why are we here? Yo, bro, it was the 1970s, bro. Why are we here? Why are we here? I mean, at least we got 149. I mean, we still got 6 rings. We're still the greatest NFL franchise of all time. I mean, I don't care.
that
I
were
don't
even
care.
in the same ballpark,
Don't at
in the
me.
same
We're
season.
the greatest franchise in
the
NFL
77
history.
Packers were terrible. They only had 11 touchdowns in 14 games, giving them 4 more than the Bucs. And they also had 16 less turnovers. The 76 Bucs were definitely bad, but they literally doubled the
worse.
77 team's offensive touchdowns. Really, the closest competitors for worst offense of this era was the 74 Falcons. They posted very similar QB numbers. They only had 3 more offensive touchdowns, and they actually turned the ball over 9 more times than the 77 Bucs. When you put all the numbers on the table, the 77 Bucs offense was still slightly worse than the 74 Falcons. They were worse in most categories, and they were shut out twice the amount of times. So, all in all, the Buccaneers may have the longest losing streak of all time, and a record for the most shutouts in a single season. But everyone has to start somewhere, and for the Bucs, things really began to turn around after that season. The following year, their defense improved, and with first-round quarterback Doug Williams under center, they doubled their offensive output.
Doug Williams.
Then, in 1979, everything had come together. The Bucs possessed the #1 ranked defense in the NFL, and their offense improved yet again.
To Doug Williams.
So that Tampa Bay made their first ever playoff appearance. Then, against the Eagles, the Bucs produced 3 offensive touchdowns, which really it should have been 4, on their way to victory and an appearance in their first ever NFC Championship. In that single playoff game alone, they almost had half as many touchdowns as their offense produced the entire 77 season.
That is sad.
Here he's rolling. Here it comes.
Doug Williams.
Throws.
Died.
Touchdown.
Doug Williams.